Leave this park now! Leave the other door now!
Black Ape. Yes, you. What are you doing here? Come here now. Do you have any idea what you're doing? The woman stands calm, unflinching, looking up at him. I'm watching the game. My nephew is playing. Officer Harris slamming hand on his belt, voice rising. You're very wrong if you think you can just stand here. ID, now, move. Spectators stop in their tracks, whispers spreading across the field. Tension is thick. Children freeze mid-run. Parents exchange worried looks. What would you do if someone humiliated you in public for no reason? Today, you'll see a black woman stopped, accused, and disrespected by officers who have no idea who she really is. Before we dive into this story, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell. You don't want to miss this shocking story of justice and truth. The baseball field was alive with motion. Children ran between bases, gloves snapping, balls thudding sharply against mitts. Parents cheered from the bleachers, calling encouragements, clapping, laughing. On the sidelines stood a black woman in her mid-40s, calm and composed, hands folded loosely at her sides. She watched the game attentively, blending into the ordinary energy of the afternoon. She appeared unremarkable to anyone passing by, except to Officer Harris. Harris, 38, law and order mindset, noticed her almost immediately. Something about her presence set off a warning in his mind. Loitering. His partner, Officer Ramirez, early 30s, glanced at her with a more measured perspective. Children played, parents watched. The woman did nothing unusual. Harris, sharply, pull over. The patrol car rolled to a stop near the field. Harris stepped out, badge displayed. Ma'am, step over here. What are you doing? The woman turned, composed and steady. I'm watching the game. My nephew is playing. Harris, narrowing eyes. Do you live around here? You've been standing here for a while. I live 3 blocks over. I came to watch. Ramirez watched silently, sensing tension, unsure how this stop was justified.
Parents and spectators began noticing the interaction. Mr. Thompson, a middle-aged father, shifted closer to the fence. He felt the unfairness but hesitated to intervene. Harris, tightening lips. I need your ID. The woman retrieved her identification calmly and handed it over. Here, I have nothing to hide. Harris inspected the ID, scanning her face and returning to the document. Ramirez glanced toward the field again, noting how ordinary the scene remained. Children laughed, parents cheered, but Harris saw only suspicion. Harris, into radio. Subject standing near the ball field, possible loitering, need background check. Whispers spread through the crowd. Parents exchanged uneasy looks. Children continued to play, unaware of the growing tension. The woman remained steady, composed. Harris's frustration grew, evident in his rigid stance. Ramirez's expression betrayed doubt and concern, but he remained quiet, bound by protocol. Harris to the woman. Please remain here while we verify your information. The woman. Of course.
The camera pans the field, children running, the ordinary joy of the game contrasting with the tense standoff on the sidelines. The woman remains calm, unflinching, a silent assertion of dignity in the face of immediate judgment. Harris stood rigid, glancing down at the ID. His jaw tightened, voice clipped over the radio. Harris, in the radio, running a check on a female subject at the baseball field, possible loitering, confirming ID. Ramirez shifted his weight, eyes scanning the crowd. He noticed parents whispering, spectators glancing nervously. The woman remained calm, hands relaxed at her sides, posture steady. Ramirez, quietly to Harris, do we really need to escalate this? She hasn't done anything. Harris firmly, without looking at him, procedure, standard, no exceptions. The crowd's murmur grew. Mr. Thompson, standing near the fence, exchanged glances with another parent, tension visible in his posture. He clenched his hands on the metal rails, debating whether to speak up, but said nothing. Harris tapped his notebook, writing notes as if the pen itself would reinforce authority. Harris to the woman, step over here a little closer. We need to ensure compliance. Woman calmly, I'm already standing right here. I'm cooperating. Ramirez exchanged a brief glance with her, noting the professional composure she maintained under direct scrutiny. He shook his head slightly, conflicted. Harris grabbed the radio again. Harrison to radio, requesting dispatch confirmation on this subject. ID verified, but need clearance for loitering citation. The woman's tone remained measured. I understand. Please proceed. Spectators leaned forward, whispering, why are they doing this? She hasn't done anything. Children continued to play, oblivious. Time stretched. Minutes passed with tense stillness. Harris's impatience was palpable, hands on his hips, shifting weight from one foot to the other. Ramirez's expression darkened, his doubt growing with each passing moment. This is unnecessary. She's doing nothing wrong. Stay focused. We follow procedure. Harris's grip on authority remained tight. He took a step closer, narrowing the distance between them, eyes scanning the field for any perceived sign of evasion. The woman met his gaze evenly. I am standing here. I am complying. There is nothing further for you to determine without cause. Ramirez glanced at the children again, their laughter a sharp contrast to the tension building on the sidelines. He exhaled slowly, frustrated at the rigidity of the situation. Harris radioed again. Still waiting on dispatch. Stand by for clearance. Whispers among the crowd grew louder, people shifting uneasily, noticing the disparity between the woman's calm demeanor and the officer's intensity. Mr. Thompson's jaw tightened. He stepped slightly forward, hands gripping the fence, his moral tension almost visible. His eyes tracked every movement. Harris looked down at the woman again, exuding authority, expecting submission, but she remained unmoved. Her calm precision, the quiet assurance in her tone, only highlighted the officer's overreach. Time seemed suspended. Ramirez glanced at Harris once more, the weight of uncertainty evident. He had already begun questioning the fairness of the escalation, but hierarchy kept him silent. Finally, Harris's voice over the radio came back, clipped and businesslike. Harrison to radio. No alerts. Subject cleared for ID, standing, and presence at field. Proceed with standard reporting. Harris exhaled, frustration and confusion mixing on his face. Ramirez gave a subtle nod, acknowledgement that the tension was momentarily resolved, but the situation was far from over. The woman took a small step back, straightening her posture, unaffected. The crowd, parents and spectators alike, exhaled collectively, sensing that a wrong had been imposed, though the full story had yet to unfold. The camera pans across the field. Children playing, parents whispering, the officers standing rigidly. The woman, calm and composed, the silent tension lingering in the air like a held breath. The field remained alive with casual energy. Children ran bases, parents cheered, and the occasional pop of a ball hitting a glove punctuated the air. Yet on the sidelines, tension lingered like a shadow. Harris and Ramirez stood rigid. The woman remained composed, her stance unwavering, voice calm, precise. A figure emerged from the crowd, a casually dressed woman holding a clipboard. She approached the officers without urgency, walking with the assurance of someone accustomed to authority. Federal colleague. Officers, I believe you are speaking with Ms. Davis. Harris's eyes narrowed. And you are? I work with her directly. Ms. Davis conducts tactical and operational training for federal agents. She's responsible for instructing personnel who enforce law at the highest levels. Ramirez's eyes widened. He stepped slightly closer to Harris. Ramirez, you're saying she trains federal law enforcement? Yes. She's certified and fully credentialed. You can verify with dispatch immediately if needed. Harris stiffened. His authoritative posture faltered. For the first time, he looked uncertain, glancing between the woman and his partner.
Harris stammering slightly. I didn't realize. The woman, Miss Davis, remained calm, her voice steady, measured. Woman, you assumed my presence here was suspicious. That assumption was your error, not mine. I am cooperating fully and standing in a public area.
Please verify my credentials before making further judgments. Harris reached for his radio, calling dispatch once more. A tense silence followed, broken only by the muffled sounds of children playing. Ramirez exhaled, relief and admiration mingling in his expression. Request verification on Miss Davis, federal trainer. Confirm credentials. The response came quickly. Verified. The air shifted. The officer's previous assumptions were publicly exposed as false. Harris's jaw tightened, a flush rising across his face. Ramirez's earlier doubt was validated. Spectators noticed the change. Whispered astonishment spread among the parents and bystanders. Parent 1. She trains federal agents? Parent 2. I had no idea. Harris stepped back, his authority visibly diminished. Ramirez remained near him, quietly observing the shift. Ms. Davis maintained her composure. She spoke once more, deliberately. Assume nothing in the future. Professional competence cannot be judged by appearances or assumptions. The field seemed to exhale collectively. Children ran in the distance, oblivious, while the adults witnessed the subtle but undeniable correction of imbalance. Harris's jaw tightened, a flush rising across his face. Ramirez's earlier doubt was validated. The crowd, though unsure of every detail, sensed the shift in power, the unjust assumptions overturned by authority earned, not claimed. The tension dissolved, replaced by a mixture of astonishment and respect. The woman's calm authority had changed the narrative entirely. The officer's earlier bias was exposed. Justice, in its quiet form, had been asserted.
The sun had begun its descent, casting long shadows across the field. Children's laughter persisted, but the energy of the afternoon had shifted. The crowd watched with quiet attention as officers and the woman remained at the sidelines. Captain Lewis arrived, his presence commanding immediate respect. Mid-40s, experienced, procedural, his tone calm but firm. He surveyed the situation. Harris standing tense, Ramirez uncertain, Ms. Davis composed and unwavering. Captain Lewis. Officers, step aside. Let's clarify this situation professionally. Harris's shoulders stiffened. He opened his mouth, then hesitated. Ramirez exhaled, relief flickering across his face. Captain Lewis, turning to Harris. You assumed guilt based on observation alone. That assumption was incorrect. Apologize to Ms. Davis and ensure all reporting reflects the facts accurately. Harris glanced at Ms. Davis, his authority diminished, and spoke carefully. Ma'am, we misjudged. I apologize for the misunderstanding. Ms. Davis's gaze remained calm, measured, professional. She accepted the apology without comment. Ramirez stepped slightly forward, his earlier hesitation vindicated. The experience confirmed his instinct to question assumptions, to value justice over procedure when the two conflict. Captain Lewis. Documentation must reflect this encounter. Transparency and accountability are mandatory. Any deviation from professional standards will be noted. This is not optional. Harris nodded reluctantly.
Ramirez watched the scene, internalizing the lesson of professionalism and restraint. Spectators observed the interaction. Parents whispered among themselves, some nodding in quiet approval. Mr. Thompson exhaled slowly, the moral balance restored. He had witnessed public accountability, and the message was clear. Errors born of assumption would not stand uncorrected. Captain Lewis, addressing all parties. This field is public, but authority is professional. Miss Davis, you have complied fully. Officers, ensure your future conduct reflects discretion, fairness, and respect. The field seemed to shift in tone. Children's laughter resumed its ordinary cadence, the tension melting into clarity. Harris adjusted his posture, reflective, privately confronting his earlier error. Ramirez nodded subtly to Miss Davis, a silent acknowledgement of the lesson learned. Miss Davis, I expect professional conduct to guide future interactions. Assumptions based on appearances are never acceptable. Harris exhaled, finally accepting the truth of the moment. Captain Lewis oversaw the reporting, confirming that the accountability process had been observed fully and the matter would be officially recorded. The crowd dispersed gradually, parents and spectators murmuring about the rare scene they had witnessed, authority corrected by truth, professional integrity restored in real time. The afternoon sun dipped toward the horizon, casting long, soft shadows across the baseball diamond. Children finished their games, gathering gloves and bats, their laughter fading into the cool evening air. Parents and spectators slowly began to leave, conversations subdued, reflective. On the sidelines, Miss Davis adjusted her jacket and straightened her posture. She had been calm throughout the confrontation, professional, measured, and unwavering. Now, with the official accountability complete and the officer's errors recognized, her presence exuded quiet authority. Harris and Ramirez stood nearby. Harris's posture was rigid but subdued, the flush of embarrassment replaced by thoughtfulness.
Ramirez's eyes reflected understanding, a silent acknowledgement of the lessons he had witnessed. Harris, quietly, to Ramirez. I misjudged. I didn't consider the whole picture. Ramirez. We all have to be careful with assumptions. Today made that clear. Miss Davis took a step forward, walking away from the officers. Her pace was calm, purposeful, dignified. She nodded once, formally acknowledging their recognition of error, but she said nothing more. The crowd had mostly dispersed, but those who remained watched her retreating figure. Her authority was evident not through force or confrontation, but through composure, professionalism, and the undeniable truth of her credentials and actions. As she reached the edge of the field, she paused briefly. The day was ending, the field quiet except for the occasional sound of a bat striking a ball from a lingering child still practicing. Miss Davis allowed herself a small exhale, a quiet moment to reset after the tension of the day. She continued down the path toward her car, her stride measured, each step affirming dignity and moral authority. Harris and Ramirez remained behind, reflecting on the correction of their assumptions and the professional standards reinforced by Captain Lewis. Miss Davis's home, porch, later. Miss Davis arrived at her modest home. She opened the door, stepped onto her porch, and sat quietly. The soft glow of the evening settled over her, the air still but for distant sounds from the neighborhood. She looked out across her yard, thoughtful but untroubled. The day's events had unfolded fully. Humiliation had been corrected, power properly recognized, accountability enforced, and justice restored. She reflected on the quiet dignity of standing firm in truth and professionalism. Her final gaze lingered on the darkening sky, serene and unshaken. The lesson of the day was clear. Appearances can mislead, but true authority is measured by skill, composure, and integrity. Today, assumptions were corrected, and justice quietly affirmed. Remember, respect, professionalism, and moral clarity are the foundations of a life that commands recognition not through force, but through unwavering truth. Have you ever witnessed someone misjudged or underestimated because of appearances? Share your story in the comments below. Let's discuss how professionalism, dignity, and integrity shape our world. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell for more stories where justice, transformation, and quiet authority take center stage.